Hey everybody out there, Mike Henderson here with Fruition Partners. I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Jumpstart Your ITSM Transformation. I'm going to pass the presentation off to Jerry Geddes very soon, but before I do that, I just want to point out a couple things. One, today's webinar is being recorded and will be up on fruitionpartners.com sometime before end of this week. Also, as far as with Q&A, today's webinar is scheduled for 45 minutes, and I think Jerry has about 45 minutes of content, so I probably won't have a designated Q&A at the end, but don't let that discourage you from asking your questions throughout the webinar. We will be sure to follow up with you afterwards if we can't get to you during the live session. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and pass the presentation off to Jerry Geddes. Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Mike. So welcome, everyone. Good morning. And today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a product that we've put together that helps organizations that are considering moving down the path to a fully mature service management approach. So that would be, end-to-end processes, end-to-end services, very customer-focused, versus the traditional IT, which is more systems and subsystems situated in silos. So this is very, very specific to that particular situation. And what we've done is we've cobbled together a package that allows you to get onto this very, very quickly, cheaply, and easily, and get moving with the transformation with a goal of adoption. So we're going to talk about a little bit of introductions and how this all fits in terms of strategies, roadmaps, and continuous service improvement. We'll talk about an overview of the product, what the components are, how it works, and how CSI and organizational change are part of this. And then I will move through this fairly quickly. I will try to allow for some time at the end. And if it turns out there isn't time, I'm happy to even get on a phone with anyone afterwards and answer questions in greater detail. So basically what we've got here is the collective learning of all of our assessing and road mapping experts at Fruition, and collectively we've been doing this a long time, since the very beginning, since this type of thing has been done in the industry. And what we've learned is that it's much more than just having a good tool like ServiceNow and having good, clean processes inside your tool. It really, really, at the end of the day, your ultimate success, and for me, the success of a ITSM transformation is one word, and it's adoption. And I say adoption specifically in contrast to compliance. It's just more where people just feel like it's a natural way to get work done. It just seems like the path of least resistance. So in order to get there, to get this adoption, there's some things you have to be very, very careful about. You have to learn from mistakes other people have made. You have to learn from the things that people have done that are successful. And the two main levers to deliver all of this are organizational change and governance. So you do all the other stuff, but organizational change and governance is how you make sure that you stay in control and you get your target state. So what we've done is we've given you a tool set that allows you to do all of this and move forward. And what you don't want is you don't want it to turn into one of these year-long software builds that don't really seem to gather momentum or collective will or hearts and minds. And they tended to not be able to prove that service management has actually made a difference, what I call telling an ITSM value story. So this offering then helps guide you from your current state to a true ITSM transformation. And eventually, we go through the design build, and eventually you go into operate mode. And a lot of organizations are very keen to move from the design build governance steering program framework to an ongoing operational framework that they would call either a service-based organization or a service management office within an existing organization. So this is all designed to help you get there. So in order to pull off one of these transformations, what we've learned is a few things that you need to do, some ducks you need to get in a row. So the main one is that IT has to be fully aligned with what the business is trying to accomplish. If you're in healthcare, what are the goals of healthcare? If you're in manufacturing, what do you have to do to get your product made, get it out there. And so we want to make sure that the transformation, its ultimate goal is to make the business successful. So there has to be an alignment between business goals and then, of course, IT's objectives in order to contribute to those goals as a contributor from a complete end-to-end service management perspective. So then you need to have a current state evaluation. Where are you now? Baseline of your capabilities. And this offering looks at the core 5: service, desk, incident, problem, request, change, and knowledge. We can also do config and release, but we tend to focus on the core 5. And then what we do is we collaboratively with you develop a strategy to achieve your vision. So everyone is different, and it's a combination of our best practice, your business goals, and we come up with a unique strategy for you to get there. And then we build it all out into a roadmap, and we break the roadmap into 3 phases: crawl, walk, and run. And we look at all 3 of the components of the people, process, and technology triangle. So it's a holistic look, phased in the proper sequence with the proper dependencies. So, our consultants have collectively over the years worked on a lot of programs, and sometimes we get into a situation where we have to go in where a project has been started and hasn't really turned out the way they wanted, and we have to figure out how we get it back on track and get going again. And one of the things that we've learned is that one of the easiest ways to get into trouble is to try and do walk-run activities when you're in the crawl phase. So the classic example of that is you try to build a fully blown CMDB in phase 1, and that'll pretty well guarantee that your program will blow up. So what we do is we build out a roadmap that looks at your current state, where we want to get to, what's missing, and then phasing everything in the proper sequence of dependencies to get you there and avoid all the traps. And then finally in this product, what we've learned is that once you have the roadmap, it's not easy or necessarily natural to move into ITSM program deployment mode. So we've included 25 hours of coaching to get you started. So a lot of people ask, at what point in the ITIL service management life cycle does this whole assessing and road mapping piece fit in? Where do you do that? Is it part of service design? Is it part of strategy? And the answer is yes, it's both of those. But where it really, really begins is in CSI. So what we're doing is we're taking your current state and we're going to improve it to a target state. So, so when we look at what's the vision, this product looks at your business vision and goals. We do a baseline assessment to determine where you currently are. And then we have measurable targets in our crawl, walk, run method to get you there. And then we build out a roadmap. And the pieces of the roadmap, we build out what we call tactical trees, which include tactics, deliverables, and action plans. And then, of course, we get to the measurements and the metrics. And true CSI is not just putting out reports. True CSI is making improvements, i.e. executing things on the roadmap, and then measuring them to see if they worked or not, and then using the KPIs to determine whether or not your roadmap was successful. And that's what we call telling an ITSM value story. We can say, here's a bunch of stuff we did, here's some best practices, here's what the numbers were before we did these best practices, now here's what the numbers are. So CSI is an important tool to execute your roadmap over the typical 2 to 3 year lifespan. So the Jumpstart then, it's this comprehensive package of the 3 components: assessment, roadmap, and coaching. And it's actionable right back to everything that you want to do. All the dots are connected. It's not a boilerplate exercise. And it's designed right from the beginning to make sure that your goals are met from an IT perspective, so in turn you can meet the business goals. And one of the ways we do this is we use an app. It's called ITSM Coach. It's the only app of its kind in the industry. And basically what it does is it automates all the steps of the CSI cycle. There's nothing out there that does everything. There's lots of people do reports, pivot tables, and business intelligence and so on. But there's nothing out there that does all of the CSI piece in one place like this application does. So that's why we're able to do it cheaper, faster, quicker, with great precision. So we can assess, baseline, provide the tactical steps, and lay it all out for you. So we identify your current state, and this is collaborative, by the way. We don't just sit in an ivory tower and tell you this is how it has to be. We work very, very closely with you. We map out a clear path, and then we coach you on getting set up. A lot of the problems people have is that there's a sense of inertia after the traditional assessment piece is very, very expensive, time-consuming, and fatiguing. And it's very common after all of this where people just want to forget about it for a while and just relax. So what we do is we get you in, get your assessment in, get your roadmap in, get you ready to go, quick and painless, and then we coach you on setting up and getting immediate traction so you can prove that these things are working, and this helps you stabilize your processes. And then it sets you up for long-term CSI. So the big picture here, if you look at our various offerings, this transformation jumpstart on the left is part of a larger deployment model, engagement model that we use with our customers. And very, very often we'll begin with this. So we have customers that are kicking the tires of service management, or they've decided they want to do it, but they're not really sure, how to get going or where to start or what sequence to do it in. So we come in at the beginning with the Jumpstart, and as it says here, it's a rapid maturity assessment, and that goes into our ITSM coach repository. And road mapping is part of CSI, so what we've done is we've leveraged the coach road mapping piece to build this. And then in the center of the picture here, you've got your standard technology implementation, ServiceNow. We've got service management, we've got ITAM, we've got out of the box, we've got accelerators. So, you would go into your ServiceNow implementation. And then on the other end, within a month of go live, you would use the same coach portal to now attach KPIs to your roadmap and start ongoing improvement, stabilization, and proving that as you deploy the roadmap, that everything is working because you have the numbers behind it. So what this offering is the left side of the picture. It gets you the rapid maturity assessment, you get your roadmap, you get a 6-month subscription to coach to maintain your roadmap. And our goal is that you'll be so happy with this that you'll want to carry on and buy a longer-term subscription and then start applying the KPIs and moving through the CSI as a service offering. So the transformation, it takes 5 elapsed weeks, but it's not 5 weeks of work. It's 4 phases. The first phase is the maturity assessment piece. So we start off with a pre-kickoff interview with the executive sponsor. What this does is it sets the context and the tone for the entire engagement. So this is the lens through we look at everything. So whatever the executive sponsor lays out as these are the things that we want to do, this is where we want to go, this is why we want to do it, this is where we're struggling, this is where we're strong. All of that stuff creates the glasses through which we look at the rest of this exercise. So from there, we get through the mechanics of doing the maturity assessment. So rather than death by interview, we have a very, very slick web-based maturity questionnaires. We have satisfaction surveys for stakeholders. So we have a survey for IT users, for IT staff, and business executives on their satisfaction. That's optional. Some companies don't do that at all. Some do one, some do all. So it's totally up to you. And then all that data is pulled together and assimilated. And then we follow up with a discovery workshop where we really, really dig down on the results from the surveys and start talking about the rationale behind the answers. And in that workshop, you actually learn how to score a maturity level of a process. You learn what the difference is between 2.0, 2.5, etc. So at the end of that workshop, collectively, we as a group decide what the final scores are. That way, you have buy-in. No one can say later, I don't agree with that score. You've got the key people in the room. They understand the differences. So we leave that phase with everyone on the same page of what the scores are and why, where the strengths are, where the gaps are, and what the general approach should be going forward. So then the next phase is the analysis phase, and this is where we get into detail conversations about each process, about where we want to go, the kinds of things that people in similar situations have done in the past. And through this process, we land on a strategy, usually about 10 or 12 major planks in the platform that combine your business objectives, your current state, desired state, and our best advice. And we land on a strategy that basically says the roadmap is going to be a detailed version of this. So once we get agreement on that, we move forward to the roadmap and 2 to 3 year actionable roadmap, crawl, walk, run, people, process, and technology. So at the end, when you see the results of the roadmap, it's not like one of these renovation shows where at the very end there's a big reveal, there's a surprise. All it is a detailed version of what we agreed to in phase 2. And finally, the deliverables. So the roadmap comes in 2 formats. There's a Word document, but it's also in Coach, and you get 6 months of access to it to update it, to change it, to add deliverables, to track actions, and so on. You also get a sample CSI improvement scorecard to show you what you could do if you continue with the subscription and buy the CSI option. And then there's an on-site executive presentation. So as I said, it's a crawl, walk, run approach, and it's a maturity model that is not CMMI, but it's based on CMMI, so it's using very, very similar criteria. And crawl is a score of 1 to 2.4, walks 2.5 to 3.4, and run is 3.5 to 5. And then this brings us to our coach tool. So these are all the things that it does. We call it a CSI Swiss Army knife. So it has the ability to create improvement plans, and this is a container for all of our CSI activities. And it's sprint-based. It's not agile, but we do these things in short durations, typically no more than 3 months at a time. And it could be as short as a few weeks, but we need to get the data and determine whether the things that we've done have changed the data for the better, hopefully. Then we have our surveys, customer, practitioner, executive, and custom. We can build custom surveys as well. And the maturity assessments, so I explained it's the core 5. And if you're familiar with our accelerator products, it's the same core 5 that's in our accelerator: incident, problem, change, knowledge, request. And we also have the ability to do config and release. Has the ability to do improvement report cards. So what we do is we baseline, we set targets, and we'll roll up several KPIs into an index similar to the NASDAQ or the Dow index, and we track against that. It has the ability to do the tactical tree roadmaps, actually tracking specific items in the roadmap with due dates and deliverables. And on the CSI side, once we get a KPI into the zone where we want it, we can basically put it on auto and set that on auto and just let it run. And it'll let us know if that KPI gets out of spec for us. And then, of course, there's dashboards. There's a requirement for dashboards in an operational sense. CSI is more longer term, but we also need dashboards to help us make decisions on a shorter time frame. So the maturity assessments look like this. They're quite detailed. There's scoring logic, and there's specific scores that have to be gotten in certain questions in order to move on to the next question. So we call these maturity limiting scores. So it's quite detailed. You can see where the issues are in this particular example. Questions 33 and 34 were the maturity limiting scores in this particular example. And so when you build up the roadmap, you can go right to these things and you can say, all right, why did we not get that one? What do we have to do to fill that maturity gap? And where in the plan do we plug that one in? So this gives us that kind of detail as opposed to the traditional ad hoc assessing methodologies. So once again, very, very detailed feedback on the assessment survey results with the overall rating and description of what the characteristics are of your organization at this level. So as I said, 3 levels of surveys: practitioners, users, and executives. And not only do we measure their satisfaction, we measure how important it is to them. So we combine those 2 together to give us some insight into how this has been moving along, where they are, where they want to go. And then the roadmap. So as I said, there's a Word document that has the roadmap laid out in tabular format, but the coach version is visual, and you can see that the roadmap is broken into by ITIL life cycle, and then it's broken into tactical areas, and then specific tactics designed to address those areas, and then specific deliverables designed to achieve each of those tactics. So you get all three levels of detail in the roadmap. And then the next level is actually assigning actions for people to do this work. And what you can see here is an example of the action log. And the note at the bottom that we have a 6-month trial subscription to ITSM Coach. So when you buy the Jumpstart package, you get 6 months, so you can go in and either change the roadmap or refine it and track all your actions. So you actually get working with it right in the tool. So then the next piece then, if you look on the far left of this slide, we start off with the Jumpstart itself. So we get the assessments, the surveys, and all this feeds the roadmap, the tactical trees. And then so the outputs then are a multi-year roadmap and tactical tree format, describes the crawl, walk, run. And we also give you a sample service desk and incident scorecard to show you how you could build this out going forward. Even if you don't subscribe to the CSI coaching bundle, which I hope you do, even if you don't, we give you a straw model that you can go off and build a scorecard with that on your own. And finally, the action log, as we said, to track all of this, and then we build out the report cards in the CSI subscription. We do monthly, once we stand up a process for CSI, we do monthly checks and maintain focus on the tactics in the roadmap. If the things that we're doing are working, we keep doing them. If it turns out something's not working, we go back, figure out why, change our approach, track it to make sure it works. So basically, we're setting you up here for long-term success. There's an example of the kind of card I was telling you about. So we'll give you a straw model to show you, a bit of a jump start on how you create a scorecard like this for your desk. So the final deliverables then, a Word document, the core 5 processes, and assessment and roadmap covering people, process, and technology. There will be organizational change management recommendations, which includes governance. You get your CSI straw model, KPIs, and dashboard. 6 months trial to coach for roadmap tracking and management, an on-site readout and PowerPoint presentation. And then this is the piece that's relatively new. We've added this in because what we found was that customers felt like once they had the roadmap, they still needed help to get going. So we've added in 25 hours of coaching on the roadmap realization, on how to integrate the 3 elements of the people, process, technology triangle. A really good approach for organizational change management. One of the things you'll see in the industry literature is that service management is the most difficult and challenging and highest risk of all the different categories of organizational change that a company can do. And the reason for that is that when we put all these multiple processes on top of a typical siloed organization, it creates almost endless matrix relationships between the workers and the process managers and owners. And that creates its own unique blend of organizational change issues and resistance. So this package is well aware of that, and the roadmap will identify typical ITSM-related traps that you got to watch out for. So that's what we mean by optimized for service management and adoption. Coaching on how to set up governance and ensure that your processes are designed, built, and operated with the sponsorship from leadership and all of the right people making the right decisions for the right reasons, and eventually building out an SMO from the design build phase, and of course continual service improvement. So that's all I got. I wanted to leave some time for questions, so we do have time. Mike, how did you want to do that? If people have a question, what's the mechanics behind that?
Yeah, folks can actually just submit their questions through the GoToWebinar question panel box. So if there are any questions, please go ahead and submit them through that, and I'll kind of sort through them and funnel them over to Jerry so we can answer them for the asker, but also the rest of the audience as well. So we did have a couple questions though that did come in, Jerry, throughout the webinar. So I'll go ahead and present those to you right now. But actually, before I do that, I know at the end of webinars people tend to jump off. So before people start leaving, I just do want to remind everybody that today's webinar was recorded and will be up on the fruitionpartners.com website sometime before end of this week. And also, if you're looking for more information on what Jerry covered today, obviously, today's discussion was, for a short 30-minute webinar format. But plenty more details to cover. So if interested in learning more, feel free to reach out to Jerry. Or, you also have the contact info up on your screen right now as well that you can reach out to us using as well. So, hopefully we'll hear from you down the road. But as far as questions that came in throughout the webinar, Jerry, one of them is, who is this product intended for?
So the primary audience is organizations that have decided that they want to start doing a service management approach as opposed to traditional systems and silos. And that means either they're brand new at it or they've been at it for a while and they just can't seem to get the value that they thought they were going to get from it. And then the other category is people who have never done it before, but they're absolutely committed. They want to do it. They're going to get going, and they know they need a roadmap, and they're looking for somebody to give them one. So, people that have tried and struggled, people who are thinking about it and not sure, people who have made up their mind and want to get going.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. And then actually there was a part two to that question as well. I'll go ahead and present that now. So the follow-up was, then who participates in this Jumpstart process?
Okay, so one of the things we want to do is make sure that we get enough input from the correct people, but we don't want to cast the thousands. So typically, what we end up with is the program sponsor, the program manager, the person who's accountable for delivering it, each of the process owners for the 5 processes, each of the process managers, and subject matter experts. So, for example, you might have service desk agents who are particularly good at their job. You want to get their input, and then other what we call key stakeholders. It could be representatives from the business who have a strong influence over what IT does. Could be customer service relationship people who have a foot on each side of the river. They work for the business and IT. So that's primarily the group, and typically, we end up for each process somewhere between 6 and 12 people involved. In Austin, there's like a core group of 6 that are for everything, and there are people that are added to that list for each specific process.
Great, thanks, Jerry. And then we actually have one more question to cover here. So if any other questions come to mind for our audience members, please go ahead and submit those now. Otherwise, you can reach. Jerry, can you put yourself on mute just for a second? I'm getting a bit of an echo. So if questions come to mind following the webinar, though, feel free to reach out to us again using that contact info up on the screen. So the last question we had actually was submitted by Jimmy Wayhall. Thanks for the question, Jimmy. We haven't decided on a tool yet. Do we need to do that first before the Jumpstart?
Actually, no, you don't. In actual fact, the Jumpstart is tool agnostic. You don't even have to have ServiceNow as much as we want you to have ServiceNow. But oftentimes, people use the output of the roadmap to help them decide what they want their tool to do. So the answer is that no, you don't have to have decided on your tool first.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. We did have a question come in. Thanks, Jorge. Are we getting a copy of the slide deck? Yes, I can send this to you after today's live session. I'll send you a PDF version no problem. So we'll take care of that for you. And I think that's it.
Anyway,
yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, if anyone wants to get on a call and talk about it, I'm happy to do that. And I'm even happy to give you a demo of the tool to show you what it looks like live if someone's interested in that. But basically, what we've got here is a very slick package where we've tried to trim out all the bad stuff related to these types of exercises. The cost, the time, the commitment, and the energy that it requires, and the fatigue you get afterwards. This is very quick, easy, cheap, painless, and highly accurate results that are actionable. So, look forward to working with anyone who's interested.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I think what we'll do here is, since no more questions are coming in, we'll go ahead and wrap things up, close down this live session. But, hopefully we can continue the conversation, afterwards. So like Jerry said, feel free to reach out if you want some more info on this. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing everybody on our next webinar. So, Jerry, thanks again for your time, and thanks to all the attendees.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care.